Open Stage would like to acknowledge the Susquehannock peoples, upon whose unceded land we produce this show. Open Stage commits to the work of dismantling the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism and the exclusions and erasures of many indigenous peoples that continue today. At Open Stage, we also believe that Black Lives Matter, and you should too. That belief starts with acknowledging plainly how the systems we depend on often operate as if they don't. We at Open Stage proudly stand united with Black people and communities of color during this movement of unrest and uprising. This show is brought to you by Open Stage, a professional theater company. Check out Open Stage's complete list of shows, all of which are offered completely free this season at openstagehbg.com. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Oh my goodness, it is so great to be back with everyone. I feel like the last 2 weeks have been the longest 2 weeks. If you didn't know, I turned 40. Hey. And it was great. Okay, everyone's asking, well, how do you feel? I feel good. You know what I'm saying? I feel wonderful. Tonight we have something special for you again. I want to make sure we preface, do a little housekeeping before we get started. Where, of course, this is our Mayoral Debate wrap. So we're going to get right into it. But before that, May 18th is 6 days away, okay? I want you to get out there and vote. If you watch the Mayoral Debate tonight, you may be confused about how to vote. And I just want to tell you, we can't tell you about that, all right? We just want to present the information, all right? And let you know that it's good for you to be informed. You should absolutely be paying attention to these debates and there are a million talks. There are 10 million talks. Why, thank you, Open Stage. Thank you. There are a million talks, a million shows now. I'm happy about all of them. I tried to list out in Concerned Citizens, one of my favorite groups, by the way. Shout out to Kevin Butts for running a pretty great group. Tried to list out some of the local media from here to Lancaster to all these different places that are covering our local elections, that are covering regional, national news. There are so many things that are being covered. So please pay attention to all of that. It's time to get ready to make your plan to vote. Are you taking your family to vote? Do you need a ride? Do you need to understand where the ballot and what's on the ballot? We'll be posting in the next couple of days the ballot information so you can start studying up. One of the things that I wish that had been done for me was that there was someone or an entity to break down some of this stuff in real time language, because we have four different ballot questions on the ballot this time. That's a lot. And I know the candidates are getting a lot of play, but these ballot questions are a big deal. So I want to make sure that we're in tune for that and we're ready. And last but not least, who's running for office? We'll be keeping you updated on everything. 6 days to go. Okay, we've had some breaking news and all kinds of things happening today with candidates, and we had a debate. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce my co-stars this evening and a local talking pundits and political analysts. We have Rachel Hadrick. She's in the house. She is one of my faves. I mean, that's why she's here. And Rob Schoaf is here. And last but not least, my very favorite person is in the house. His name's Basir. Okay? And let's start out with Basir getting a special mention. Well, Basir, apparently you have a comp plan.
Yeah,
okay?
Apparently, I have a comp plan.
I didn't know that. Did you know that?
Single-handedly.
Yeah. Okay.
Working on something.
I think that's funny. Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, before we get started, I want to read you a very special thing. One more little thing. All the organizations involved in this effort are 501c3 organizations. And as such, we are absolutely prohibited from directly or indirectly participating in any campaign on behalf or in opposition of any candidate or elected public officials. We can't endorse anybody. We're here to bring you the issues and how we feel about those issues. Okay? So let's talk about that. Question one. Let's start with question one. No, but before we start with question one, I want to say this. Let's give an overall debate feel. How did it feel? Rachel, tell me how it felt.
I felt like, I'll be honest, I was underwhelmed as compared to the city council.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So there were a lot of great ideas with the city council. I don't think it was quite this. There was quite the same ingenuity with the mayoral candidates.
Absolutely.
So there was a lot of the same concepts and ideas.
And the ability for this, I absolutely agree. The ability for the city council candidates to think on their feet was way different. And I think that's something that to me speaks to the quality of the candidates. What about you, Rob? What do you think?
I agree, Rachel. I think it was good to have, but it was like I left not as energized as I was with city council. I think it actually is indicative of the need for mayor. Like, do we really need a mayor when we have city council that has ingenuity and these relationships that can be prosperous, knowing how the residents are? I heard a lot about the federal level, national level discussion about what I can do, linking up to the federal, national. But everybody keeps asking, what about here at home, grassroots stuff? And that's important. This knitting together is important, but I think there's a lot of placating to that. Hey, what I've done nationally. Type of thing. So
absolutely, and I think the candidates that were, so there were a couple things that I saw happening with that. We kept talking about what every other capital city across the nation was doing. We kept on talking about all these different things that were happening outside of the city. And while I agree that it is important to have a synergistic approach, as ex-mayor of Hanover, Monica Ojo, actually stated in a public forum we went to some months ago over the summer. While it is important to have, this synergistic approach for a capital city, because we are a capital city. So that means that the convergence of governments is very pronounced in the capital city. I absolutely agree. However, we're dealing with a city that we know firsthand because of that convergence. I have seen firsthand, folks still have a lot of understanding to get to what levels of government do what. So tonight we had folks saying, well, federal level, or these are the cities and these are the cities. And I kind of was like, yeah, but we have been consistently not explaining what can get done at the city level. And then when they did explain what could get done on the city level, it was wrong. Go ahead, Basir. I know you want to say something.
No, I think this was a debate where people said things. That's how I feel. I think things were said and ideas were had, and we can deep dive into that for the rest of the night.
Correct. So that's kind of my overall take of the debate. So I'd like to jump into the questions now. Okay, before we jump into the questions, I want Rachel to hold up her paper because I want everyone to see the colors. We got to talk about these colors a little this way. Yes, they're color coded. I'm assuming for the candidates. Is that right?
Yes, and then I have general notes in a different color.
That's right. It's a different color because you know what? She's organized. Okay, and she
really.
So Rachel, we're going to hear all of Rachel's notes. So I want to jump in to the first question. We're not going to let Basir give an overview of all the questions because why? We want you to watch the debate, okay? It actually ran shorter than we anticipated because, in my opinion, folks weren't using their time. Listen, I know everybody don't like to talk. I get it. Folks may be tired. A couple of my friends pointed out, well, maybe they're tired. Sure, I get it. They should have took a nap. I know everybody has a full day. Y'all know this is coming up. Second, use your time to tell. This is one of the many ways that you can communicate with voters. Use your time. Tell us what's going on. I did appreciate some candidates jumping in there and being like, okay, I don't have a rebuttal, but I want to use my time to talk about another issue. I thought that was cool. It was a little confusing, but I understand the tactic. So first question was, the city is expected to receive approximately $48 million in COVID-19 pandemic relief from the federal government. Bearing in mind the restrictions set forth in the Treasury guidance for funding from the Biden American Rescue Plan, what would your proposal be for those monies. So I want to know what you guys think about that. We'll start with Rob this time. What you think about that? Some of the answers to that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to tie into understanding local infrastructure, and I think Wanda Williams and also Dave looking at how that's is spent infrastructure-wise. Of course, I would say we should already have been at a point where we had a strategy for this to know where to prioritize. Given that we had 6 years of comp plan discussions and actually no one's actually sorted through that really well. So I think that's So I think this is important. I think Dave, we're looking at Dave, where things get spent, especially he was linking up to economic and social infrastructure, which I think is very important. Social equity, that should be the key piece in all this as that passes through. So I think that's the bigger thing. I thought it was also important understanding economic justice and environmental justice issues, looking at the Susquehanna pollution. So those are things that stood out.
Excellent. Rachel?
The thing that stood out to me, I watched Mayor Pappenfuss's interview with the mayor of city in New Jersey, Stockton. Yes, thank you. And this somewhat, I don't know how new it is, with this new proposal for guaranteed income for a select group of residents, which is different than universal basic income, which would be for everyone regardless of their income. This would be for a targeted group of individuals. I can't say I'm against it. I think I'm definitely for it. I just I think it's interesting. Since we passed the 2021 budget when we did, and with the emphasis on different areas that we did, that's a new. This is now a new idea to incorporate guaranteed income for a select group of our most impoverished residents. I do think that's something that needs to happen. This idea that money could go to these families to help them do things to survive. I think that there could have been more. I was looking for more creativity. But, I think the idea of just giving money to people, honestly, is good at this point. People are struggling. So
absolutely. I think that I think touting this, you can look this up for yourselves, and I'll try to find a link while I'm sitting here. But one of the things that people don't realize about that guaranteed income plan is that it didn't help a lot of people. So what I want to hear is, how are you going to scale it up, right? If we know we have so many residents, so many thousands of residents in our city who were struggling before the pandemic, right? Before the pandemic exacerbated the issue with how much people were struggling, right? Before that, we knew that there were these problems, so we're touting this plan kind of thing. But I think the statistic was that particular one that he's referencing, and he brought that mayor on to talk about, only helped 125 families over 2 years. We have a lot more than 125 families who need that type of assistance in Harrisburg. So I'm waiting to hear more, right, about how we scale this up. It's a very good idea. I don't think it's a bad idea at all. And I think the mayor has very interesting ideas. Y'all know how I feel about that. But I think it's a good idea. But how do you scale it up? How do you make it so that if you're going to, first of all, I think it's curious that it's happening 2 months before the election. Okay, that's curious, right? And second, so it's been 7 years. So 2 months before the election, now you're all about this. First, it was universal basic income. Had to change the language on that. Now it's guaranteed what? Guaranteed what? Guaranteed something. Guaranteed what?
Income plan.
Guaranteed income plan. So we changed the language. Good. One person commented and said more specific language is good. I do appreciate that. I want to know how we scale it up.
If I could throw in here, it was interesting. I know Outer Banks said that Pappenfuss was pandering to the Black community with this initiative, but his first suggestion was giving 500 to 1K per household. So I didn't see how that was.
How is it different?
Mhm.
How is it
Yeah,
different?
but he was focusing on the black ladies.
Oh, right, because he said black women. So that's what made it
But
different.
that's
Got
true.
it. Thank
that
you,
women
Basir.
were most affected by the pandemic.
So the black lady, so the women's. Go ahead, Rob.
I wanted to add, the mayor very specifically said, leave no votes uplifted or behind. So it really shows that he's thinking about voters instead of every resident. Like we look at,
Every resident.
25% of the city is under 18 years of age, non-voter.
Absolutely.
So we should be actually looking at all residents. So I really appreciate a candidate who actually considers everybody living here, not just voters who would vote for a particular candidate. So.
Absolutely. On that question, I thought, here's the thing. It's the first question, because we didn't even move from question 1 yet. It's the first question. Can I tell you a little behind the scenes secret? They got the first question. That's all I'll say.
I want to add, and I'm talking more about this on Tuned In to Sunday's Lunch and Learn.
Yep.
Cross advertisement. Because this is why you need a comprehensive plan, so you have a series of things where you're going to spend money so that it's not, and I'm talking to you, almost every member of city council. So now it's not aspirational anymore because you actually have the funds to execute it.
Look at that.
But I'll come back to that later.
We'll come back to that. All right. Did we all get to say our piece on question 1? All right. Question 2 was, what is your position on police reform, defunding the police, and police abolition? Please elaborate. Ho, ho, ho.
Can we include the question that was asked later? It was the same question.
It was literally the same question. So we're going to fold that up. But that, by the way, that question was not a slated question. So the moderator kind of went off script a little bit. So whatever that question was, I don't remember, because that was not one that we had slated. But yeah, so I'll say this about that question. It never ceases to amaze me how much people want to hang their hats on quote unquote police reform when we've literally been trying to reform the police and retrain them and retrain them and reform them and retrain them for 2 generations. We are in 2021. We are in 2021. People have been trying to reform the police since the civil rights era. What the fuck other reformations can we do? What other fucking training do y'all need? Okay. There was a really good NPR special on a sister who did you listen to that, babe? It was the other night. And she was talking about how she did the same thing. It was about this. It was basically about people who joined the police force to change things. Right. And they got in there with good hearts and good spirits. And they tell their stories, they tell their journey about how they tried to change things. And the changes, they were literally shitted on because they were like, this is racist, this is discriminatory, this is sexist. And they would go down the list. There was a man who tells a story about, he's in his 80s now, about how his mother and father were almost killed by police. And he became a police officer to try to change the police, to try to change that. Right? He tried to change that. And his dad was thrilled. His mother was horrified, but he had this plan and he went in and he tells the stories of how trying to change things from the inside, like people, I heard that tonight too, trying to change things from the inside, literally it was fit. And these are black, they were highlighting black and brown police officers, how they were met with racism, discrimination for trying to change things from the inside. So I just thought, the candidates hanging their hat on this kind of nebulous, ridiculous at this point idea of retraining the police, it sounds ridiculous because literally we've been retraining and reforming the police for 2 generations. Anyway, Rachel, Basir, go ahead, Basir.
I think this question specifically, and I know the city council, it was actually interesting watching their answers to this because Jenny called it out, right? People are scared of the word defund. So you heard Wanda say, she said the reason why. No, I don't want to say this word because I have residents who express fear to me. So therefore, to address their fear, I'm actually going to talk about an increased police presence. And I'm not going to say the word defund, but I'm going to suggest that we have other programs that actually probably should be used instead of police, but I'm not going to say these words. That's pretty much everyone's answer in a nutshell. They try to have it both ways. And Pat Foos is basically saying, hey, the community policing idea, or the civilian staff that still reports up to the police, is my version of what this looks like. And that was pretty much everyone's answer. But I really want to go back to that first point. It's like there is a fear that triggers off people, that politicians are scared that if they say these words, their constituents will react. So I think that's why you get these answers.
Absolutely. Rachel, go ahead.
I think people are completely missing the ball when it comes to the concerns that people have with police. It's not about it's about lessening interaction, bringing down the interaction, having people having foot patrols, walking the community. That's not going to lessen people's interactions. It was just, to me at this point, I'll say I don't know what people are doing. The information's out there. People need to stop, again, being fearful of the terms and what they sound like, and respectability, and being labeled as something if you agree with this idea, and just honestly do the research of what abolition and defunding is. I mean, we just have to have, I've even struggled with it, like have to have courage to not worry about being labeled by, general society or whatever, and being like willing to explore and ask these hard questions about like, what are we doing by keep continuing to add money? And so many of the candidates talked about increasing interactions and increasing funding. To me, that made me uncomfortable, that like it's tone deaf. That's not what people are asking for. People don't need to have their every move regulated by the government. I mean, if you could turn it around and it was about people carrying rifles around, we hear those people say that they don't want their every move regulated. But when it comes to people in the city, then all of a sudden, like, let's regulate their every move more. And that sounds legitimate, and it's confusing to me.
That is, I mean, it's so funny because there are, I think at the time when I was saying the statistic last summer, there were 36 municipalities and police in Pennsylvania who had literally defunded the police, right? They said, we don't need police in our town. We're wasting money on their pensions. We're wasting money on their salaries because their effectiveness for what they cost doesn't do anything for us, right? And so, but when you look at which municipalities did that, we're always talking about municipalities that are not urban municipalities. When it comes to urban municipalities wanting to have that conversation and explore that, it is always, well, y'all motherfuckers need police. What are you saying? Like, right. It's always that. And so I find it very interesting that, like, for example, a local example is that right across the river, Wormleysburg, Lemoyne, and a couple other municipalities combined their police departments 30 years ago, maybe almost 40 now. I think it was in the 70s or 80s. And that is a form of consolidating funds, right? And defunding and putting the funds into different things that would better help the community. And well, I think it was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez who said, what does defunding the police look like? It looks like putting those monies into programs that would benefit the youth. It looks like putting those monies into programs that would provide housing. It looks like putting those monies into programs that provide services for the community so that you get at the root issues of why you even think you need police, right? Yeah. So, Rob, what do you think about that question?
I agree with all the points so far. I think it goes back to how to engage and making sure that those root causes are addressed. I think I appreciate Otto in referencing some data and looking at some metrics. He said research-driven practices. I actually like this to actually how do we hold accountable? I think Dave had some good thoughts about his neighborhood council, Unity Council, to say, hey, we want to get the word on the street, so to speak, and have that build that relationship and trust. But he also mentioned community policing as well. So he's mixing, I think, these labels and really untangling these labels. And I think the work has to be done by folks who look like me to actually understand what this means and really dig deep into it. And I think Rachel, Basir, and Kimeka, you're right. Is like we have to understand what that means. Policing in one area, it happens to be a suburban area versus an urban area, and this is a national discussion, and this should not be new to us. Like this has been since 2014, looking at Ferguson and even earlier. It just this discussion has been out there. I would say white folks have been slow to it. So I will say it because this has to be dealt with and really addressed, not in these fearful things of not abolishing, not defund, is really looking at where can we value people or human beings in capacity, which other candidates had talked about tonight in the local city, whether that's job and education and meaningful ownership of places and also education. So if we can understand these flows of cash flows and monies, our money would be better spent in dealing with root causes than to deal with them after the fact, right? That's our whole discussion here.
And I will say to you, I am floored and flabbergasted, and quite frankly, I was a little upset. No candidate talked about transformative, restorative, or regenerative justice. Not one. That is crazy to me. With all of the literature we have available, with all the YouTube video, okay, you want to read? There's a YouTube video for it. There's so many things to talk about why we, especially, okay, I don't want to say that because it's too mean. But we have materials, okay, that this tells me they're not researching. This tells me we're focusing on other things that literally aren't even moving the needles for these candidates. This was crazy to me. We're focusing on these other efforts that are literally not moving. We're focusing on the whack-ass commercials that don't say anything besides repeating, oh, well, we got, do y'all hate guns? Well, vote for me. Okay, you hate gun violence, vote for me. I get it. But what kinds of restorative justice, regenerative justice, and other kinds of these, and then I don't even want to say novel. I don't even want to say that they are now, these new ways of thinking. This literature has been around for decades at this point. Why are we looking at that?
I will give Otto credit. He did mention economic opportunities being a pathway.
Absolutely.
So
that was in the second portion of that question, right? It later.
That was
later
on, right?
Yeah.
In the later,
which is
also
good.
have increased patrols. So
literally, we heard about increased patrols 55 times. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of people not orienting, particularly people who want to lead a Black and brown city when Black and brown people are over incarcerated, over policed, the world over. Why don't y'all know about these things? Why not? What's the deal? What are you looking at? You can't just stay in your own bubble. I'm sick of hearing I'm a lifetime Democrat, so that's why you should vote for me. I'm a lifetime resident, so that's why you should vote for me. When Republicans criticize Democrats and say, look at your cities, you've been Democrat run for 2 generations and look at what state they're in. How can you argue when you look at the field for the mayor? How can you argue when you look at what happened with Stephen Reed? How can you argue when you look at what's happening under the current administration? Anyway, go ahead.
I was going to say it goes to disinvestment, and again, to plug a book, Andre Perry's Know Your Price, and looking at the urban communities divested 23% less than their white counterparts in neighborhoods. I mean, this data is out there, and I think any public official should be versed in this and have a go-to place. And actually, that helps lead the rest of residents who may not be in that thinking, right? And that's the important thing, to connect and be a research-driven city, but also bringing people along and expecting more.
Absolutely.
And that's one thing I will say, going back to the mayor of Stockton and Pat Buchanan dialogue. we have to have courage to talk about things in new ways and just get rid of our like respectability. Like, how are people going to view me if I feel this way? Because one of the things they talked about in that conversation was the fact that like the people who are part of that guaranteed income program used the money the right way without having someone watch their back. They didn't use the money for alcohol and drugs, although that's their business, right? But they didn't. They overwhelmingly used to get a full-time job, to get their car fixed so they can get to work every day. Like, they were using the money for the right things. And so, but you can't get past those things if you're not willing to have bold ideas. And that's what I just felt like a lot of times as the Democratic Party often, especially on this policing issue, is just stuck in this mode of like, well, I don't want to look like, I don't like the heroes if I like talk about, realistically transforming our society. It's not about them. It's about us and why we keep dumping on this one group of people and asking them to do our dirty work, right? Because that's what it really is. It's like we ask them to control people, right? They do the dirty work for us because we're too lazy to like envision a society where people have what they need and can function. So we just ask them to like enforce order.
Absolutely. And that is been the biggest downfall, I think, for Black and brown people. Now you're asking this group to enforce order, right? Not accounting for the systemic racism that has been the bedrock of this country. So what happens when you lazily ask this group to just enforce order? What happens, right? You bring all the things with you that make America what America is, particularly racism and sexism and some, capitalism, imperialism, some other things. But we use police, not me, but other folks use police as personal bodyguards, for their own interests versus as an entity that would actually do what the moniker has been across the country, which is protect and serve, right? So this is why when I talk about police needing to, be completely abolished and done, it's because of that. Because we have been, again, reforming this entity for a million years. But I do want to say one thing about abolishment, and I think this is why it scares everyone, because they think abolishment means that tomorrow there will be no police. That would destabilize society in a way that is unsafe. We're talking about public safety, okay? So if we want to destabilize society in a way that's unsafe, then we're not enacting public safety. But we do have to think about real ways to quickly and effectively change our model of delivering public safety, because what we have is not working for particularly the marginalized in our society, particularly people of color. And if it keeps serving just the dominant culture, how do you account for, the folks who are being most harmed by that system? And that's what folks are asking for. They're asking for real conversations around that.
So what is interesting, I would say, if instead of the community policing positions that Papenfuss did, I will give Schenkweiler credit for his idea. Like, if you actually had 4-person teams in the wards where you had someone who was in charge of planning and communicate, like, so if you laid it out and you took that and funded it with the money that you spent on police, that would be a great way to do it. But I don't think they're making those connections. That's us doing them a favor and drawing those connections.
And the other thing I want to say about Dave Schenkweiler's, Dave for HBG's idea, because I don't want to mess up his last name, is that we already have that. Okay? We already have this community model he's talking about. It's already embedded in Harrisburg. We don't need to recreate the wheel in order to deliver what Dave's talking about. Further, I want to say to each and every one of those ideas, except for a couple that the mayor and Ms. Wanda talked about, You don't need to be mayor to do any of that. Any of it. Go ahead. Who's next?
Question 3.
Question 3, and we've said this to the candidate's face, so this is not a surprise. All right, I like this question because it kind of got us away from some of the heavy hitting, but I still think it important. The only public dog park in the city is operated and maintained by Friends of Midtown. There are currently no city-run dog parks. What is your opinion on the importance of the availability of quality parks, including dog parks in the city? What would you do if elected mayor to encourage healthy, clean, safe parks throughout the entire city?
I'll just start. I did like Dave Shankweiler's ideas about utilizing the park space that we have. That there should be festivals, that we should drawing people with our festivals. We already do draw people with the festivals that we have on Front Street. I'll put out there the Weekender has the potential in conjunction with, as organized by the Singers Lounge, that has the potential to be kind of like a festival of epic proportions. And they had gotten that off running the year before the pandemic, or 2 years before the pandemic, but that kind of slowed down last year, obviously, because of large group gatherings, even outside. But we should be utilizing our park space more in ways that our community actually will participate in those activities. Overall, I mean, I was a little thrown off by the question. I felt like, as a dog owner who is obsessed with her dog as her child, I don't think that dog parks are that important. I'll just be honest. I think we have we have human issues right now, and I'm not gonna elevate my dog over the human issues. That's just my personal take on it. But I do believe we need to talk about the park space. I think our kids need spaces. Our kids need spaces. One thing that I observed over the pandemic is the kids in my neighborhood, when school was out, or they were doing, remote schooling, is that they had way too much time on their hands. And some of them were getting into trouble. And, again, going back to the policing thing, no, I don't want you to crack down on them. I want them to have something to do. To do.
Crack down. Who was it that said it earlier? I think it was Lou Kirkland in the comments said, I think I put it up, but I think it's such an important point because it's how we approach as a society almost everything, right? And getting away from punishment and punitive measures is something that we bank on. We bank on that. And so when we think about, because we have let this culture of punitiveness, I guess is a way to put it, kind of overtake everything, particularly because of how much Alu said that people have no imagination beyond police and punishment. And that extends to every fucking thing we do in the city, right? It extends to everything. It extends to how we conceptualize our parks. It extends to how we conceptualize poor people. It extends to how we conceptualize schooling. Everything. It permeates everything. And when you have this culture of policing, and not even policing in the uniformed way, like we're thinking of somebody with a uniform, but just the sense of you need to be surveilled so that you behave. And if you don't, you will be punished. Just that sense and that permeating everything affects how we do everything. And that's why I have such a huge problem with how the candidates literally, I think we said it earlier, do not think outside of these parameters, right? We're not researching fresh ideas. We're not using the information available to us to think about how to properly facilitate an environment that uplifts the very marginalized and the very affected. People are affected by these different systemic issues in society.
And my thing is, and I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, mayors, use your tool. 10% park open and civic space. There's a goal that describes this entire question. There's a section that should be, how do you map out parks? There's currently a grant right now that's for this work that if we had this plan, the mayor should actually just make sure that they're executing what's in the plan, because now there's going to be funds for it. I might sound like a broken record. That's it, Rob.
Yeah, no, I was gonna reiterate that. I mean, from the plan, the People's Plan from 2017 draft, that was in there. A Parks Master Plan was one of the main action items to actually think about everything that everybody's talking about. Let's have a comprehensive link of all the parks, addressing neighborhoods that may not have parks, because someone mentioned that in the comments. Boy, this is really enlightening here, and of course, this has been around. I think it's important to understand the need and necessary thing for a plan. We cannot be plan adverse. That's a scary word, planning. But we all do it. We all plan when we get up on our morning daily routine. We have plans in our heads that we do. It's just what we need to do collectively. And we make sure when we do that planning, we don't step on anybody else's personal agendas, their personal property, or anything else. We do it together because we have shared governance and we actually value other humans. So I agree with Rachel in that this question was a fluff question. I really don't like that it was geared towards Friends of Midtown. I'm putting that out there only because it shows a model of, hey, this neighborhood did it, everybody else can too. What's important is actually looking at, which Otto did, was looking at several members' community. This has been working on, he mentioned Rafika. There's some other community members doing some of these things elsewhere and looking at it from a green space account. So I appreciate that the dog park is there, but at my point is, I think there are larger issues to contend with. And I think we actually need to develop a system, which gets back to Dave's point, looking at the public works, safety, codes, and planning initiative to make sure that there's a balance in neighborhoods. We don't currently have that. We have a system of community groups, but there's no synergy between them. We have 50,000 brains as gray matter that can be harnessed in social capital. I think Otto mentioned that in the past, and so did Dave. But I think getting to action items and working through those to implementation is important. Again, I'm not trying to. I appreciate the dog park. I've used it, having a dog, but I also have 2 daughters. There's other issues to look at in this mayoral debate, particularly after 2020 COVID and all the social equity stuff.
And that is a big one. Like the fact that he referenced utilizing the resource, and Rafika Muhammad is like one of the key resources in how we're
one of the biggest resources
utilizing and grow these parks. Like that was a
right.
very good reference that shows what's happening.
I think so.
Yeah, and I think we need to push past these ideas are great. They should be put somewhere, but also how do we support those efforts so that other neighborhoods are doing the work that doesn't make the news, that doesn't make media. There's stuff happening here in Harrisburg, and I know teachers talk about that all the time within the school district. Stuff doesn't make the news, but there's some amazing things happening at that level.
Absolutely. So. Okay, have we said our piece? Let's move a little quicker because we can talk all night.
All right.
And I just want to point out that we're talking longer about these questions than some of the candidates did. Okay? I was timekeeping. Some people only talk for 20 seconds on certain things. But again,
we have
it also started getting spicy. Are we going to talk about the spiciness?
Yeah, we're going to talk about the spicy. It's spicy in there. Okay? What are you going to say, Rob?
No, there's a comment about Basir's plan in there again. I'm sorry, Otto was talking about.
This is the next question.
That's right.
I'm glad we got here.
Comprehensive plan, number 4.
Go ahead, Basir.
The passage and hopeful implementation of the comprehensive plan has been the subject matter of much debate in the city for years. In fact, the data used to draft the comprehensive plan is, in the minds of some, arguably already out of date. If elected, what would your position be on the implementation of the comprehensive plan? And I just want to note, Basir has a plan, and Kate already gave you a hashtag, and it's a Basir comp plan. Just want you to know. This is already done, babe.
First of all, I want people to know, and I'm gonna put people's business out there. There's been at least 2 companies that have been contracted that have gotten paid upwards of $200,000. So if I had a plan, I wish I had a plan. I have been doing this for weekends for 6 months for free. I'm getting ripped off.
Period.
If I had a plan.
To start off, I just want to say I have not read the comprehensive plan. I'm not even going to try to act like I have. I went to look for it the other day and I had difficulty finding it, at least from my mobile device. I had difficulty accessing it. So I will say that I did attempt to access the plan and was unable to pull it up from the city website. So I'm not gonna.
Here's the thing, and I see a couple of comments in
But
there,
I'm
right? It can't. This is the whole. This is why they've already wasted time. And this is where I won't give Wanda or Papoose a pass. Right? They messed up.
Community.
They pushed aside a plan, and right. What they're trying to do now, they're trying to use the excuse now, right? Oh well, we need to adapt something so we can adjust it. Absolutely. You need to include in the plan mechanisms for continuous community engagement so you can modify the plan and have regular reviews and implementation,
Exactly.
which is defined in the implementation and planning section of the plan. You're not doing anything because maybe the implementation is past page 10 and you don't want to read.
Exactly.
If you don't want to read, you cannot be in public office. If you do not want to read, you cannot be in public office. I will say that. If you do not want to read. Now, yes.
Go ahead.
As a person who's in public office, guess what? If I was in public office, I wouldn't expect you to read. I would convert it. I would make videos. Perhaps I would make a video every week for an hour to try to break down the complexity of the plan.
I wonder who did that, Rob Show.
I wouldn't try to compress it in a 2.5 hour Zoom where I'm talking at you for straight 2.5 hours.
Wonder who has videos on YouTube.
I don't know.
One
who has
for
videos
every week.
from 2019, and
From
even
2019.
so
I should
everybody out
just
there.
go back and watch Rob's.
Yes, but here, Rachel. But the thing is, I even got blowback from that. It is 15 minutes is too damn long.
15 minutes is too damn.
Okay, well then that's a problem. If you're in public service and you can't do that, there's a time issue. You have 168 hours a week. You need to reorganize some things. Okay, I don't want to really swear on this topic, but this really pisses me off. And
that was your swear? Did
well,
you hear me
I was
talk
holding
like
back
3 times.
I was holding back.
And I want everyone to know, Rob has educated me. Rob is an architect. This is not, I'm not making things up. I am, Article 3 of the MPC prescribes the content of the plan. I'm not making these things up.
It was so
y'all.
embarrassing.
This isn't me just being like, ooh, I think y'all should be doing this.
It's Basir's plan.
No.
Let's put up the hashtag again. Basir comp plan.
This is like, oh, I'm reading, and this is a requirement of cities, and a plan should be
every 10
prepared.
years. Every 10 years. And Chris is right that in 5 years, the information changes. So I know you can pick up all this stuff on the Lunch and Learns, and so I don't want to belabor this, but it really, really irks me that I was in meetings and talking about these things, but I, even with my education, was pushed to the side and treated like a non-person that could be actually engaged.
Talk about it.
So Dave, reach out to me. Hey, any candidate, reach out to me. I'm not here to be an expert, and this isn't my plan. This is a collective 120 plus meetings, and the data that is quote different and changed. Yes, there are parts that have changed, but if you can go back to a 1968, a time to act from 1968, and listen to those same 5 elements, which are in Andre Perry's book: housing, education, technology, healthcare, and also incarceration. Those are 5 things in the book to look at. He's a Brookings Institute fellow. He looked at this last year. If you're not reading that book by now as a public servant, you are missing the point. So all I need to say, right. And so every 10 years, every 5 years, they should be looked at. Every year, we should have metrics that the city is on point to say, you know what, residents, we looked at this, this, and this. We saw your top priorities, which was the economic development, which is in jobs and education opportunities. It's what's happening to youth. Everything that everybody's complaining about right now is in the first 2 pages of the 2017 document. Is the top 5 issues that they heard. The funny thing is, this is the same thing over and over.
Absolutely.
It may not be in specifics in the allocations of funds. We're looking at incarceration and that sort of thing, which I agree, but they're related. We have to look at this regeneratively and holistically. That's what I'll say.
Absolutely. And I just want to say this. I'm looking at these videos that people are making. I'm looking at the theatrical productions. I'm looking at all this stuff. And what I'm hearing from folks is that they're not, and I want to say this carefully.
There's no content.
There's no
edutainment.
There's no
edutainment includes content.
Thank you. Like we are making fun things. We're making, I went to these doors and the residents told me, great. Now what? And my plan is over here. I got a 10-point plan. We don't talk about a lot about the plan because I don't know why. I've been on everybody's website. I have analyzed all the plans. But then you get on a motherfucking debate, okay? You get on a motherfucking debate and you say, well, the plan should be 10 pages. What kind of shit? And then we have another one we have another one that says,
exactly.
Well, I want to know which plan because I didn't know which plan. The plan. Okay, let me just calm down. Okay, Lord help me. The plan. Okay.
Starts dropping names.
It has been on. Okay, and Rachel said I went to look for it. It was difficult to find. Absolutely, it is.
Recently, one time, but I'm also not running for mayor.
Nobody has reached out to any of us who have been looking at this plan for the last year to say shit. Not one of them. And that's words. Until when? Tuesday.
Until voting time hits. Yes.
Thank you.
And so that should be one question.
That should be questioned. But we have all this big talk and all this other fucking mudslinging they want to do. And all the time, I'm above the fray. No, the fuck, you're not above the fray. You're not above the fray. If you've had a business in this fucking city for 34 years.
Right.
You're not above no fucking fray. Yep. You should be in tune to what the fuck is happening. Yep. If you're such a businessman, Dave, we'll drop that name. You should be able to know, not only should be able to know, your campaign should have been the bedrock of all of y'all's campaigns, actually, should have been the comprehensive plan.
If I was running for mayor, I would have distilled it.
It is. They try to pretend like it's not. The housing question. All of their solutions. Guess where those solutions?
But we don't need a long
the parking question that Wanda was like, "Oh, we've been trying to do." Oh, yes.
The parking's in there.
A lot of solutions.
They didn't read that plan. They didn't.
So it shows what's important. It's long-term thinking. Okay, what are long-term issues that we need to address? And then the short term, we can't just think about this in an electoral piece. And one last thing, yes, we're throwing Dave out there a lot, and I think he did say it right, because this has been in question. We have vision. What is a vision? Understanding that vision and articulate the vision. That's actually, he phrased it really quickly. That if we knew that, because here's the discussion now. We don't want anything aspirational. I've heard that in meetings now. And that scares me because we should be using what people have said as data and actually vision what that data is.
Yep. And here, and we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this because I don't want to go into it. Guess what? The first question, right? This influx of money that's now coming in. Guess what now happens? All these aspirational plans all of a sudden become executable. If what? If you had a
plan,
guess what's coming down the pipe? Guess what's coming down the pipe to Harrisburg? $48 million. Was it $48 million? $42. Yeah. 42?
Yeah, I think it's
48.
48.
Hold on.
$40 million coming down the pike from that American Recovery Plan Act. It's coming down the pike. What don't we have?
Right. So
a comprehensive motherfucking plan.
Right. And just to clear again, I know this is frustrating. The comp plan, the whole purpose. So just to clarify some things for the audience, like the comp plan is a capital investment plan at heart. So yes, do residents need to read it? No, it is. It's a high level piece. But if you go to Albany and look at their systems approach in Albany of how they put this together and engage the public, that's how this should have been done. That was up front. So Rachel, they should have had a website to link up this stuff and continue this work. It was never carried through. Even the RFQ from last 2019 for the rewrite with Wallace Montgomery that should have been website driven. We don't see any websites on this stuff. It's supposed to be out there, but it should have been built in parallel. That's our problem, because now We took what we continue to do this. We survey our residents, figure out what they want, and then try to do our work and like do what we want as officials. So we say as officials are making all these plans, and then put it out there as if everybody wanted that. That's what we keep doing. We did it with Reed
Literally
behind closed doors. We've got to shift from one last thing. There's another term, developer-led or developer-driven planning. We do not want to just work, and this is the affordable housing issue. How do you put incentives for developers? Let's actually establish what quality of life is within our neighborhoods at a 22 neighborhood level. Using Dave's idea again, is that at the neighborhood level, let's put together what is the priorities for these things, and then drive the developers into what they should be doing for us. Not the, hey, how do we get more developers in here for economic growth? That model is dying through the US, and that's been hurtful in gentrification and displacement. That has to be said at other cities if you look at best practices. So
absolutely. Okay.
You wind up with the same small group of people moving to these developments, but then you have all these people who can't afford to live in those developments who are left out. Like,
right, exactly.
There's only so much you can if you make the developers come to you, they will work in that because they have to develop to continue to sustain their businesses.
Absolutely.
This is exactly why small area planning should be done. And at the comprehensive linking together, the small area plans should have been a big part of this early on. So this is where we're at, and we're behind in 5 years. So because now exactly right, Bessir, if we had the money and ready for a plan, it's like, we need to do these 3 things. All the neighborhoods could have benefited. So that would have been it.
Okay, y'all. It's 10:12 because y'all will talk about this all
Next
night.
question. Let's talk about the budget.
No, I don't want to talk about the budget. No.
All right. So we're skipping that question.
No, I didn't mean it like that. I meant, you know what I meant? I meant that for this question, and so especially the second part of the question, recognizing if you would be elected, recognizing that if elected, you would be balancing an environment of competing priorities with a limited local government. What would be your budgetary priorities for 2022? I heard nobody talk about a transparent. Well, no, that's not true. Somebody did say something about transparency, but I don't know if it was in the budget process, because one of the things that we suffered from greatly in this process, especially in the last couple of years, is it literally does not even get addressed until November, right? And so the community, and then they pretend. I was very offended past year. They pretend like a 2-week process for 50,000 residents when you don't even publicize that the budget is up for review and up for a vote very well. They pretend like that's enough time. It's not. Like, it's just not. And people who are tuning in because we are trying to understand, what's happening. We're on the front lines trying to do that. But I was really surprised, and to me, it means that people are not paying attention, that no one talked about that, like getting people more involved in this budgetary process, because it's all of our budget. What do you think? Or sorry, Rob, go ahead.
Oh, I think that it's related to the comp plan because allocations of funds and really prioritization. I get the fact that we were a distressed city and we still have issues, and financially has touted we've heard how this recovery has happened. There's the ICA as well. There's all these mechanisms. I think transparency coming out of Reed administration was a big thing. But I think what we really are missing is the relationship of how funds are spent, and the linking back to residents understanding. Where does their money go? Particularly with policing was one, public safety, infrastructure, paving, all these things, green space or recreations, programs for youth, and then linking back to employment, to making sure that the metrics, we're looking at residents that are employed in the process and are looking at any of their contracts that are local as well. How do we build that knowledge up, that capacity?
Absolutely. And, the budget decides a lot of big things, one being the policing. Another being, we were talking about the damn arborist in the police budget and how much his salary should get. There were so many things in there that are decided at that time. Shout out to those council members who did help us facilitate that process and did give us, especially the community youths that were organizing around it, Harrisburg Abolition Table, YPOC, and a couple other organizations. We're not only are we interested in the budget, but we're interested in making the budget process something that city residents have a chance to participate in and give their input in, right? I think that, and this to me should mirror how we, talk about every level of government. Like, how do we get involved at each level? But, the other thing I want to say about the budget is I asked this question. I still haven't got an answer because I actually asked it in writing to City Council. To this day, I asked that question almost 6 months ago now. And I said, how does the annual action plan, which we are under with the Intergovernmental Commission, I forget the actual name of it, but since we're in the cities also in Act 47, how does the annual action plan, the budget, and the comp plan, how do they inform each other? And I was told, well, we can't do that. And I wasn't even told that in a writing response. I was told that kind of off to the side, like we can't make those things align. And I'm like, well, why not? Like, what's the reason? Nobody's saying why. And I'm like, we just can't is not a good enough answer anymore.
Right. So I think what you could do is crowdsource it through us, through the groups of us, but the looking at the residents that are here and
You're
show,
us.
okay, yeah, well, the thing is, okay, here's the budget. Here's how it links back to the comp plan. Like,
Right.
if you can't take a simple line item and figure out how that links back to a comp plan, that's actually fairly
That's
simple.
bad.
Yeah, that's a bad thing. If you can't do that, use a spreadsheet. So that's a problem. But I would say, I think that, as you mentioned, it's great to involve other agencies such as the school district. The same thing, transparency in budgeting and making sure that they know how monies are spent.
Absolutely.
Salaries, overhead, and all that. So.
Rachel,
You guys covered it.
we covered it.
I mean,
okay.
There was a lot of talk about public safety.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fun, good.
Okay, number 6, we're getting there. Much has been said about the current and past political affiliations of the candidates. Since Mayor Reed was elected in 1982, the mayors of Harrisburg have belonged to the Democratic Party. What impact do you think your political affiliation, past and present, have on your tenure as mayor if elected? What about your fellow candidates? Well, this is where shit started to get spicy.
That's spicy.
Spice. Okay, go ahead, babe.
Let me jump in because I'm watching Penn Live because I got a call from Penn Live and they asked about this question. And I don't like it because the idea of Democrat and Republican changes, and it changed what this week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, if you're a Republican, that means you got to believe that Donald Trump won the presidency. So this Overton window has shifted. So yes, first of all, if you weren't a Republican, if you're a Republican today. I mean, Tim Robottom didn't get in on this debate, and that's probably for later. We'll see how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a Republican today, that means something it's different, right? It's definitely grown. We need to look at policies, and we need to look at individual policies and what that means on a local level, because there's certain stances. I will give Papenfus, like, he answered this in a good way. Like, there's things like school choice. There's there are certain policies that on a local level, there are typical, like back before, I'll say turbo racism, right? Like, I'll say back in the days of racism light where both parties were racist, right? Like, because this is one thing I need people to understand. Like, Democrats have not been friends with the black people. Like, Republicans have not been friends with the black people. Like, so if we want to talk about which gang you're affiliated with, because that's what it is, which past one, we need to look beyond the labels and we need to look to issues. And I think the candidates answered that.
Especially at the local level.
Yeah, especially at the local level. We need to look at issue by issue, and people need, like, hey, do you understand what school choice is? Do you believe in school choice? That's a big one that I think there's a huge divide between the candidates where you need to look at their policies and you need to say, hey, do I agree with that? And we need to deep dive into issues like that. And that's what matters more so than your ex label or your current label.
Now, I feel different ways about that because I understand that at the local level up to the national level, it just plays out differently, period. Like, talking about Democrat and Republican in Harrisburg, understanding now that I've been here with Basir in this area for several years, understanding how the labels Democrat and Republican play out in this city. It's one of the reasons why I keep talking about how, like, people keep talking about how allegedly, okay, this is alleged. I don't know if this is really true. It's alleged. That's what the internet say. That, Miss Wanda was brought into the race to split the Black vote. We hear this a lot. And that she was asked to run by the Piancas and whoever. I don't know them folks. I know Miss Wanda, but she was asked to run for that. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when you have a city that votes Democratic almost every time, you're going to have factions within the party when people want to change power, when power wants to change, right? Or power never wants to change, when people want to grasp at power. So that is what you have to look at. Not this kind of strict and more national understanding
Right.
of Democrat and Republican. Because when you look down on the and this is something that Otto had brought up in his interview, his first or second interview with Shub, he talks about how the Democratic regime in the state, he didn't just limit it to Mayor Reed. He said in the state, it's one of the reasons after he ran and lost, and how he lost his job and stuff, why he went to the other side. Again, I don't agree with that, because if we know that, either party has these problems, I'm not sure going to the other side is the right move, but it speaks to me to the state of the Democratic Party in Pennsylvania. So if literally at the local level, this kind of who's a Democrat and who's a Republican is not nearly as pronounced. It's what kind of Democrat you are. It's what kind of where you are on the issues. Because to me, the Democrats here are very conservative in this city. They're not at all approaching any kind of progressive anything. When I say a majority, I think people are Democrat because they know to be Democrats, but are way more conservative on the issues.
If I could jump in, I guess I have some personal experience as a kid. So I grew up in Norristown, Pennsylvania, borough of Norristown, and a very similar situation happens. At one point, our mayor was a white Republican, who actually was a member of my predominantly Black church, and the Democratic establishment found someone else, another member of the Black community, who also had ties to my church, to run as the Democrat against that white Republican mayor who had lots of ties to the Black community. Mm-hmm. So, I'll be honest, I was too young to understand all of their policy differences, but there definitely was a very contentious and it was very evident even as a child that there was local politics and, establishment versus we don't like this person who identifies as a Republican, but has all of, has familiarity and a bond with the Black community coming in as a Republican, and because you weren't chosen by the Democratic establishment. So that just reinforces what you were saying. Like, I think we know the reality is if you're going to run for a mayor in most big cities, you're running under the Democratic ticket, right?
Absolutely.
To get the support, to get the funding, to get the party resources behind you for the general election, right? So while I personally, feel that it's important to align with a party that most, aligns with your values, and I would have concerns about people who just, switched over in light of the past 4 years. Like, the longer you stayed, the more concerns I have.
Period. I want to know who Dave voted for in the first election. Did he vote for Trump the first time? That's what I want to know.
That's a great question. Maybe we should call him. We could text him right now.
We could, because he gave us his number.
We should. See, actually, that'd be great to see if we can find it. But I think that's a great. I think what we were coming down through 2020 is that it comes down to the issues, especially at the local level, and gets back. Rachel, you'd said the word values, and I think that's does someone align with my values, like, and support what I think
Yes.
in a neighborhood level. And I think as we get more granular at the neighborhood level, that becomes even more important. And we should have news and media that actually looks at it in that sense objectively, like, hey, here's where everybody stands. And what I encourage voters to do when I was working to get out the vote last year is to find one issue that you really care about and find the group of candidates at all levels that support that, and like talk with them and get involved and find out what's happening, because it happens at the local level. And I know it's going to be tough because you may not agree 100% on certain things in these metrics or a checklist of your values. That makes it hard. But then I agree with your point on splitting the vote. We had that last in 2017, and this isn't a constant issue in who could we come together and choose as a group and say this is the best path forward. We have no metric for that. Unfortunately, like, we couldn't even sit down and look at the comp plan again and say, hey, here's the 5 issues: economics, healthcare, housing, education, and technology. Where do you stand? But that would be great to metrics. We kind of get here with this. Unfortunately, I wish, one last thing, as like this moderation of these candidate debates, this should have been a questionnaire that gets sent out like right away. If you're running for mayor, like, are you already thinking about these things? Because
hold on.
if it's taking you this, if it's taken you this time and you switched parties, like, then have you been following what the issues were last year? So
let me tell you a secret. Okay, who's running for office? We painstakingly constructed a survey on the issues, and do you know only 2 candidates filled? Babe, did anybody else fill it out? Did they ever fill it out?
Let me check.
Check right now.
Because I put in some hours on this.
Because he put in hours.
Wow.
Basir had been collecting information,
Wow.
and 2 of these motherfuckers out of 6 filled that shit out, and I sent it to everybody. I sent it to Republican candidates and the Democratic candidates. I'll tell you some behind the scenes shit. There was an hour-long conversation on the Pap and Feast campaign about whether or not to fill it out, and they chose not to. I don't know why. I don't care. But you didn't do it because I don't know. But to me, it says that you don't really, you're not taking us seriously as a community organization. This is a effort of the YPOC. You know our work, you know what we've done in this city, and you don't take us seriously. So that's what that says to me.
So, Wanda Williams and Kevin Knox were the only ones to fill it out. And we did just that. How would you address?
We literally went through issue by issue.
Stormwater management.
And what we were trying to do was make sure that we create a tool for the residents to see how they align with the candidates on the issues. Well, these bitches didn't fill it out, okay? And not only did not fit it out, but they had these conversations amongst themselves about why they wouldn't fill it out. And it's because they don't want to look bad. And I'm like, listen, say it with your motherfucking chest. If you are on this side of the issue, say it with your chest. If this is how you feel about, say it with your chest. We're not trying to, Kimeka personally may not want you to look great because I don't like you, certain candidates, but who's running for office, YPOC and these other groups, they're not out to make you look bad. We are literally collecting information so that we can serve the population. That's all we have ever fucking done. And so, like, it really, really gets on my nerves when you get to have hour-long conversations, Nap and Snooze, about how you don't want to fill out this goddamn survey. Like, we're trying to do the shit that y'all will not do, which is serve the community, as in my estimation.
So, does anybody acknowledge that after 2017's primary, that the current mayor had addressed that there was a racial divide in the city back in 2017? So that was reported on. So, at this point, you should be very close of what this means for this particular community and the people in this majority community. And so, to me, and I appreciate what Vishal has said on, there's a comment, it comes down to not being brave enough. I wouldn't say necessarily brave, but you're in it to try, you're going to be, you're going to get dinged points for, coming out and talking about these things. But if we have to point out, Kimeka, honestly, it is that you've just mentioned this and it came out anyway. So like the fact that you didn't fill it out is worse than actually filling it out. So
Who
that's a
didn't fill it out?
problem. If
What,
someone didn't pick that up once, right?
Somebody had computer issues, Otto. Listen, y'all can put together whole multimedia fucking presentations about the Transformers and shit, but you can't fill out my goddamn survey.
I was just
the
gonna
next
say,
one.
can we talk about accusing people of pandering to black folks? But you made this whole 12, like this whole.
Rachel, don't even start with me. Okay, no, let's start. You know what? Let's start. Because
like, how are you accusing other people
How?
black folks and you made like a 10-minute
How?
video with rap?
How? We have a thing that we do on Tuesdays. It's called Tipsy Tuesdays. Everybody's invited. I invite candidates. I tag every fucking body, and you should just come. If you survive, then you come back. Okay. So we watched the entire 10 minutes and 13 seconds of, or whatever it was, of this video. And here's my takeaway. It was very fun, very cute. I thought the production value was about a B-. I thought plagiarism was probably an A+ though. And I also thought that for a mayoral candidate, it didn't speak to any mayoral issues that a candidate should be addressing. But I do think it resonated with people because it was fun, right? Like it was a fun, I did not enjoy it. It was very nice. But I'm looking for a mayoral candidate, and I haven't found one that addresses the issues in a comprehensive way. I thought we started to approach that tonight, but we didn't quite get there. And I don't, me and several people were talking about this last night and today, and I've been getting text messages and all kinds of stuff. What do you think of this? I don't think the pandering that Dave for HBG is doing is different than the pandering that Otto was doing. I don't think so. It's different than the pandering that Papa Piece is doing. And Ms. Wanda said it best. She's literally the only one who's not pandering. Ms. Wanda is sitting there like, y'all just gonna get these looks.
Here.
Wait, if we're gonna talk about spicy, can we get to the point where Otto woke her up?
Woke her up out her
She was like,
sleep.
oh,
She said
you
you
gonna bring
weren't
me
here,
into it.
Otto.
I wanted her to say, I'm gonna get a shirt. You weren't here, Otto. Because Mom was serious. Auntie was serious.
I mean,
she was
had a point.
like, first of all, you weren't here to be talking about nothing, so you can't even speak on that. But what I think was interesting is the candidates, the common denominator for me is that you can tell which candidates are really and truly out of touch with the community, including the mayor. That's what's so sad about it. He's the actual mayor, and he's also out of touch and has to pander, and it's very sad. Very sad.
All right. Parking?
Yep. I don't care about this question. Like, listen, the comprehensive plan has it. I don't understand why. I didn't understand some of the answers.
Like, yo,
Nobody
you
talked
know
about-
who I'll give for an honest answer? Wanda was like, man, we've been trying things that haven't been working. I don't know.
That was great. Yes.
He's like, I don't know, man.
Y'all got a
Like, you
solution.
know what?
I don't know.
She's like, that's the realest answer, though.
It
She's
was
like,
real. I don't know. I don't know what
"We've
the fuck to
tried
do about
things.
this parking.
If you have a better
Can I-
plan,
Okay.
Can I just comment?
go ahead.
Like
Yeah.
they talked about making the city multimodal, biking and walking. That's great. And I guess I should be on the environmental kick and stuff too. But like public transportation.
Public transportation sucks.
Like unless you live in Midtown and work downtown, biking.
Period.
First of all, I'll be honest, I can't ride a bike. I will walk. I hike, so I will walk
Yep.
miles. But
Mhm.
but then I'm gonna be too sweaty to be at work. Okay, so
Rachel,
But
we
if
need to
you
get you a
live,
bike.
like-
you need to get a bike.
No, babe, we're not getting. Wait. She
you
just said she
live,
doesn't want
like,
to.
on the outskirts of the city, or you live in Allison Hill, you can try to walk across the bridge on a decent day, but depends
Yeah.
on what part of Allison Hill. If you live
Right.
in some other section of the city,
Listen,
and
it
you
is
work downtown,
treacherous.
walking and biking is not going to do anything for you.
Impossible.
Like public transportation. If you are of a different ability. If you have kids,
Yes.
you can't bike with your kids
No.
to the doctor's office. Like, we
cannot.
need public
You cannot.
transportation, and we need ways to then get from city to city as well. Like, and that would reduce
Listen,
parking. Like, I
listen,
wouldn't necessarily
the
even
West
have a car
Shore,
if there was
absolutely.
decent public transportation.
The West
The
Shore,
grocery
East Shore
store.
connects. Thank you. The West Shore, East Shore, the I don't know what to call it, but the way that the West Shore and the East Shore interact, it surprises me that we still, after all these years, do not have a clear, fast way to get from the East Shore to the West Shore, East Shore to West Shore. Why isn't there just a regular ass, running ass, 10-minute ass bus that takes you across these motherfucking bridges? Like, why don't we do that? We don't have it. In order for you to get from the East to West Shore, you got to start at the mall. You got to come downtown. You got to change some shit. Then you can get across the a little bit. You got to take the South Bridge though, because nothing runs across the other bridges. There's 5
Better
bridges.
do it by 6 p.m.
And you got to do it by 6 p.m. because if you don't do it by 6 p.m., you're not getting nothing. And people literally have lives. Like, it would make it safer. Like, one of the things, like when we used to go out, now that I'm 40, I'm gonna just keep saying that. Now that I'm 40, I may not do this as much, but also it was a pandemic. When we used to go out downtown, it was hell to get a taxi coming from literally just across the bridge before we had the YPOC house. It was hell to come across in an Uber, a Lyft, a taxi, whatever the fuck it was. You just couldn't do it. And if we're talking about how to sustain this city and how to think about parking, if we want people to have less cars, all these things that we want, we have to what? Think in more, I don't even want to say creative, because this is shit that other cities do. I don't want to say creative.
It's
You
well,
could
it's
go
holistic,
out
holistically.
Take a bus from one part of DC to another at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Literally, you could.
And
The train runs, the bus, period.
Right. And I think that's what I there's a comp plan about it's a comp plan chapter for this. And Pamela, actually, so there's two things. One, there's one thing Pamela said really good is that there's no one person on the CAT board that uses the bus. So when we look at boards locally, we really should be looking at that, not only government, but diversity and usage. That should be evaluated. We should audit that process and do a review collectively on these agencies so that they can understand these issues. But I think the one thing is trying to solve this locally. Bus rapid transit is an option, which would be able to get east and west, north and south. These are things that other cities implemented. But Rachel, I agree. Like, DC, New York, Boston, Philly, all these places are run at a different scale and size. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't have the ridership that could support that, but we should be inventing a way to support these structures for people who really need it. Like, we should be putting funds towards that infrastructure right now. That someone mentioned tonight, I think, about an infrastructure bill. I don't remember. What was that about? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. The idea is like trying to get this stuff, passed. We should have a plan for that. So this system should be evaluated in a much deeper way. But one thing is parking. As a person who's lived in other cities, if you live in a city, you can expect to have parking issues. That's a given.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I don't know. I mean, I understand the parking issues and it sucks, but it does happen. I would be honest in disclosing that I lived in Philly and Boston living with street parking. I've moved to a place and bought a place that has a parking pad, so I don't have to park on the street. So I understand it. And not everybody has that luxury and that privilege. But one other thing is we should be looking at combined surface lots that are privately owned that could be worked with waivers.
We can't use
I know.
lots.
Right, I know. Well, this is an issue with waivers and liabilities and things like that. But what if we had a collective community shared parking? People come together and this lot isn't going to be used for a while. Let's say for the next 2 years, we're going to pave over it, environmentally do it well with a green infrastructure system, say, hey, let's buy shares into this. Screw the parking system that we have, And unfortunately, that breaks from the revenue system that's out there. So this is a complex issue, and I applaud Wanda for actually going at this and trying to get a plan that's been very difficult.
Have we said our piece about parking? Let's
'cause
move
we're
on.
like halfway through this
Housing.
list.
We gotta go. Okay. I didn't like this question. Number 9. I'm going to go to number 9. Oh, well, no. I'm sorry. I skipped something. Hold on. Parking 8. What do you believe is Harris's greatest needs with regard to housing? Listen, let me just say something about the housing question. Missed opportunity, Ms. Wanda. You literally had an opportunity to be like, here's what the city's doing. And you're like, hit them bills, 16, 17, and 18. Missed opportunity. And so, what did y'all think of the question? That was my immediate feedback. Missed opportunity.
I agree.
They were referenced straight from the comprehensive plan.
Babe, you gotta talk louder because the mic is over here.
Oh, that's right. I'm just repeating the same thing. There's a whole housing chapter who Dave and Otto referenced great ideas that were actually in that component. So if both of them had read the plan.
For them hating the comprehensive plan, I shouldn't say hating on the comprehensive plan as much as they did. They sure were mentioning things that were in the comprehensive plan.
Right? Like, so the idea of like, hey, how do we get community ownership? Dave Schickline ain't slick. He used the metrics that we've been repeating repeatedly. Oh,
You're not slick.
Home ownership is at 26%. Yeah.
We literally say it every week. Whatever. Anyway. What else do you got to say about this?
No, but I think that's helpful is that we should be returning back to those, and those should be yearly metrics to look at. Is like look at the ownership, and then the question
Absolutely.
is what does ownership mean, and making sure that do we put people into loans and mortgages that they can't afford? Like this is the issue of the financial structure we didn't learn from 2008, and I'm not saying that anybody can't go and own a home, but we want to make sure that we have a system that's set up to make sure that that's achievable. And I think that's where Wanda, she had the opportunity to expand on these and expound on these things. It didn't. But I also want to put a note on this is that we should not pander to developers. Again, we can't go back to developer led. Let's incentivize this for developers when we should be saying, no, this is how this is going to happen. And if you're not meeting us here, I'm sorry, we'll develop this within ourselves and build it and address the needs of residents.
Correct. I want to know what they're doing and I keep asking this question because I see a lot of development and developers things. What are we doing to stimulate home ownership for people who already live here? Okay, question. Rachel, you have something to say about that, or what do you want to do?
Oh,
You covered. I'm not going to say everything about every question. You guys covered
it.
Sentiment that I had.
Sentiments. All right. We'll give you first.
Start lightning rounding.
We're gonna give you first dibs at this next question,
Yes.
because we're on 9. We understand that hindsight is 2020, so we can basically combine 9 and 10. So give me your thoughts, Rachel. 9 and 10.
Okay, so I definitely have thoughts on it. Yeah.
Yep. This is about the COVID question and COVID response, and then COVID some other stuff.
Okay. Let me look at my notes. So, okay.
They're color coded.
Yeah, they are color coded. Yeah, the COVID response was hard.
And I don't know what fucking world the mayor lives in where he thought he was so proud of the response when people literally were criticizing him for where is the mayor? Where is the mayor? Where is the mayor?
They focused a lot on the business, like he focused a lot on the business relief, but like
and listen, the businesses say no. The businesses said no.
Is giving to Dauphin County that were not. There was no one advocating for those resources to be brought to the city of Harrisburg with respect to testing.
Let me tell you a little something I heard from several
out there. Like,
yes.
With testing.
Let me tell you something I heard from several business leaders, and I'm sorry I keep cutting you off, and I apologize. But I want to just say this one point to you, to what you're saying. It is rumored, allegedly, because I got to say that for legal reasons. Allegedly, it's rumored that a certain mayor and certain commissioners of Dauphin County and a certain mayor of Harrisburg didn't want testing because testing meant more cases, and they wanted to keep the county open. The Trump method. So when we, and goes back to the when we're talking about Democrats and Republicans, when we are talking about party affiliation on the local county and city level, we have to talk about the issues. We've got to talk about them. because literally our allegedly Democratic mayor was aligning with the one Democratic commissioner and 2 Republican commissioners on not having testing in Harrisburg, a 78% Black and brown city, BIPOC city, because more testing means more cases.
Allegedly.
Anyway, keep going, Rachel. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah. The response was horrible. Otto would have done everything from day one. That was interesting. He would have done that. He would have had a website
Everything.
up day one, testing day one, contact tracing on day one.
Day one.
Because
We didn't even know what the fuck that was on day one, but
else
okay,
had
sir.
that on day one. No, people had contact tracing never. But yes, the communications were the issue. People felt like they didn't even know what was going on in the city. And again, I think so if we had money for businesses, that's great. And I think that is an important aspect of it. I know there was a lot that they were able to do with, trash pickup for different businesses in the city. But as a resident, it definitely felt like we were stranded out here. I know I drove 30 minutes to get a test one time, and that was way into the pandemic. And even looking at some of our numbers for vaccines, like it
horrible.
Yeah.
There
definitely was no. Who put door knockers?
I didn't see any door knockers.
Sent letters.
I don't know who did that. Did you get that?
Rob,
did you get that?
Anything from the city of Harrisburg?
No,
I don't
comment.
recall.
Did y'all get anything?
Yeah, please verify. But
residents of Harrisburg, did y'all get any door knockers and mailers about the pandemic? Because I keep all my mailers and I take pictures of them and send them to my friends and laugh. And I didn't get any. That's what I do with all of them.
I do the same, actually. My wife's like, just throw them out. Like, no, I'm scanning them because they're hilarious, and it's going to be an archive of history of Harrisburg. Yeah.
I have a friend who is a political consultant who I'm collecting them in mass and going to send, for research purposes.
And you know what it is? If you only sent them to 3rd Street, just say that.
Right, or around your area, your business, or whatever. Right. Yeah, exactly. No, I didn't get I don't remember the newsletter unless it's been something in the utility bill. I know they do that with announcements, but I don't recall. I know that one thing I will plug is that the school district with the free lunch and the Central PA Food Bank, it was the network that was very ad hoc, which was amazing. And that became the community level of support at the local schools. I was up volunteering at Ben Franklin, and it was great to see the Harrisburg, the COVID network, which was again ad hoc, and same with the Susquehanna the Susquehanna Action Area Network.
HBG can, the HBG
and then there's a Susquehanna one. Yeah. So it really, it really showed you that this ad hoc approach could be taken as a distributed network of support in the community,
and
outside of government.
And yes, you're making a good point, because shout out to local entities for how they stepped in, right? Aisha Mobley, there were so many people in these different groups, the HBG can, the COVID Action Network. They literally jumped into action where our local government was completely inactive.
So
I don't want to hear another fucking thing about them Friday fucking lunch and learn bullshits, because they were not geared to community. They were not geared for a time when folks could get in there and actually, they couldn't even really participate. Like, it was not a conversation with the community. So it was a kind of like, what do you call those? It was those Friday lunch and learns were like a kind of like we call those
it's
a promotional spot,
public service announcements. Yeah So here's what I would challenge the next mayor, whoever comes up that's not Papenfus. Please show us the Google Analytics of those videos and who watched and from what area in the neighborhoods, what Wi-Fi area. That would be very helpful. Just
I would
generally
love to
showing,
see.
because I would love to show who's watching Fridays.
I would love.
You know,
I would love to see it. Fridays at
because
12.
right.
Okay.
But I think the point here to make is that this was outside of administration, and it shows that this question is by default. We saw at the national level the failure for government to fill these issues, and at the state level, and that when it really came down to it, it was neighbors looking after each other. And I think that's what Harrisburg is awesome about Harrisburg, and I think we need to really support that. So that's where our schools actually became. And I know Otto's talked about this as community centers. They become the knowledge base and the resource centers that they should be for parents, teachers, and community members at large.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Otto, I'm plugging in Otto.
I know, but we're not doing that on purpose. We're not doing that on purpose. No endorsements. Okay.
It is not. Yes, that's right.
Have we said our piece about that? Okay, next. We're skipping over 10 and we're going to 11. If reelected, what would your first official act be as mayor? What do we think about that?
I hate these types of questions.
Hate them.
What would you do on day one? Probably get sworn in and take a nap.
Read the comp plan.
Yeah, read. Maybe do some research. See what my job is.
Now, this is where it got interesting because that was supposed to be the last question. Well, FYI. And it was not because we had 35 extra minutes because nobody was using there were certain strategic people that were not using their time. And I was very sad because I only got to mute like one person. The city council debate, these motherfuckers were talking overtime. I only got to mute like one person. Kate beat me to most of the people and I was just very sad. But
there were two more questions.
Oh, there was?
Yeah.
There's the
Oh, I lied. I'm trying to hurry up because it's 10:52 and we like to talk.
Yeah, there's the strong mayor question.
Oh, yes.
Like,
yeah, so let's skip over 11. I don't care about that. 12, strong mayor. What y'all think about that question?
That got spicy too.
Spicy.
Like, I don't think you understand. Clearly, between Papenfus and Otto.
Now.
This idea of home rule, which.
And that is the one I will say, I'm going to give the mayor a little tiny infinitesimal amount of credit for this. The answer was great. It was excellent and he has been a proponent of home rule for a long time. So this is not his first foray with talking about home rule. I believe this is one of the areas that he is correct. It gives the residents more protections. And I liked his answer a lot. Go ahead, Rachel.
If it's used correctly, like I think there is room for abuse.
Absolutely.
Which Otto raised. Yeah, but I'm not. Yeah, I'm all out of comments on that one. I'm all comments.
I think it was important to looking at structure, and I think that Otto was talking about org chart redesigning based on an audit. Dave re-engineering City Hall. I think he was the most in tune to, like, even with Papenfus should have been saying, yeah, I've been dealing with archaic stuff from the 1980s, city halls from the 1980s. It's leaking water. It's all these issues. Like the idea of reinventing City Hall is very important, and that actually is in the comp plan. 2017. So just a word of
guess
note.
what?
And one last thing, it's not new to move it into City Hall because I think in 2000, correct me if I'm wrong, 2007 or no, it would have been 2005. I'm sorry. That was the idea then, is to move City Hall into the Civil War Museum.
The Civil War Museum.
Rob, are you saying it would be crazy for a mayor to just stop coming up with his own ideas and actually work to implement the ideas that are created by the professionals that are in the individual areas that are laid out in the chapters of the comp plan? What? That's how I feel about that question.
Oh, okay. Have we said our piece? Let's keep it moving. We have 5 minutes. Let's go. 12, 13. Each of you contributed in major ways. I didn't believe most of them. would they be involved after? I don't believe it. What do y'all
Already
think?
said, I'm
I
gonna
think
keep
what- I
doing
think
what
what
I've
I'm
been
saying-
look what I've been doing. I'm gonna keep doing it. That's basically
Literally. And
I
I'm
really
and
feel
I'm
like
looking
it
at
was a very helpful question.
no, it wasn't a helpful question, and it was funny because there was a little chagrin about it. I thought it was a good question because I wanted to hear the non-answers. I like it. I think questions like that are important because to me, like it shows me how people are thinking, and to hear where their high points and low points were, I thought it was very interesting. Because this to me, some people may characterize it as a softball question. This is to me is a revealing question, right?
Mhm.
It reveals to me the heart of the persons who are running. And if you I forget which candidate it was. It was probably, I'm not gonna say probably, but it was one of them was kind of sidestepped. It was like, as mayor, and I'm like, yeah, you're probably not gonna win, so go to hell. But but okay, what you gonna do after that? Rob, where'd you
What happened to
go?
Rob?
Rob said, go to hell. That's what he said.
And this is the thing. I also think it's a very important question because each of them, has a significant amount of resources to actually. You said this at the beginning. You have resources and the ability to do the things that you're saying now, and that should be your work, right? And I do think. I think of the answers. I mean, it sounded like Wanda is like already engaged in different committees and things.
Mhm.
Or she wants to be on the water.
Like, I think she's locked in.
But I thought that was a good
curious
answer.
to see the other two.
Absolutely.
The other ones. All three of them have properties, have companies, have work that's here. Like, let's see. Like, I think that'll be a big test of character.
I thought that was a good answer that Wanda gave, though. Like, it was revealing to me. She said, well, I would like to be on the CRW board.
Mhm.
I was like,
And whoever gets to be mayor, people will be asking, like, if it's not Wanda, like, Oprah, are you gonna put Wanda on that board?
Right.
I thought it was very pointed and a good way to make sure that you position yourself after the election. The other answers were too fucking fluffy for me.
I always thought this after the presidential election. It's like, oh, you should take those people and we should all be working together.
Absolutely. Because y'all said y'all was about some shit, right? You about the community, you about the state, you about the people, and then nobody ever hears from you again.
Even better, if y'all are all about the people, I would love to see, hey, I'll throw it out there. Like, hey, Dave, use your building resources. Hey, Pat Foods, make Midtown Scholar more, help more Black people.
Correct.
Like there's different things that people could be doing.
Let me not comment on the Midtown Scholar part. But now, because I don't want to be too partisan, right? I do a good job of hating on everybody, and that's the whole point. So, allegedly, they call me a hater. Very proud of myself for that. But anyway.
We were very cynical tonight, but it was very equally distributed.
Exactly. I thought so.
The candidates.
Because they really, you know what? Overall, I give them a D as a group. All right, that's my grade. What's y'all's grade? I give them a D.
I think
I give them an R for read the goddamn plan.
R for read the goddamn plan, Prosper. Rachel, tell me your grade.
We are helping though, because like I feel like for some people they've gotten a lot of like you got this in the bag type thing.
Yes. And you don't.
If anything, you only have 6 days, but like
to get yourself together.
6 days to maybe, improve some things, or
Absolutely.
if you make it past the primary, then like you got a couple months to wrap that up to get out turnout, because we need, what do we need? We need, we still need a high level of turnout, and we need turnout for the other races,
Absolutely.
right? So
there are so many races, right.
If whoever is the candidate, other people are going to blame you if there's low turnout.
Period. Absolutely right.
So you need to like up your game anymore. And you need to be ready, because this is Harrisburg, and
That's
past
right.
year especially, people have had time to be involved, and people have been getting it from all ends.
Absolutely.
So we're just
Absolutely. We're helping.
prepping.
And the other thing I want to say is I really appreciated Mark Hall's question on racism and how you combat systemic racism. I thought the answers were kind of raggedy, personally.
Well,
For the
that's
most
not, I mean,
part.
we've already said that we're just not impressed tonight. So
We weren't. So can we get a grade, Rachel?
I will give a B minus.
Oh, well, that's very generous. I appreciate you.
I mean, it's on a curve. I mean,
Correct. So I started with the D, so you went with the B minus. It's fine. Great.
I'm just saying, like someone has to win. So
Correct. Someone has to win. That's actually correct.
Mm.
Basir, grade, please.
Oh, the R didn't count.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. R for read the comp plan. Rob, let me get your grade.
Basir, I think that's considered incomplete. Is the
Incomplete,
an I?
right,
Yes,
because y'all didn't read shit, so
incomplete. Yes.
Right.
I was gonna go with the the C plus, which is technically also the B minus, or
Okay, that's
off by a
good.
few.
That's
But
good.
yeah, I think it's in the middle.
like
It left a lot to be desired, and I'm sorry I dropped out with my internet, but I think the
No problem.
moving out of center and centering the residents of Harrisburg is the best move.
Yes.
that we can be
Talk
doing
about it.
at any level in these races. So anyway,
Appreciate y'all. Thank you very much. That's it. It's 11:01. We're trying to get the heck out of here. I appreciate you all. Wave goodbye to our guests. They're going to go backstage for a second. But it has been a wonderful season. It's been a contentious season, but go vote on May 18th. If you need help, message who's running for office, message young professionals of color, message friends in Midtown, message us. Let us know if you need help with anything. We'll be posting information over the coming days. Thank you to our panelists this evening for helping us understand some of the issues and understand some of the community response. Thank you, community, for all of the different comments you're putting into the chat. Please share this video so that when people wake up tomorrow, they can be like, ooh, let me take an hour and 45 minutes and figure out what's going on. But please share this video. I hope it was interesting for you. I hope that we highlighted some good issues and provided some good counterpoints to the debate. Thank you very much. We'll be back in 2 weeks with the Black NewsBeat for HBG, and we'll resume our regularly scheduled program at 8:30 every second and fourth Wednesday. I'll see y'all soon. Thank you so much for being a part of our community. Love you all.